So it's tough enough to own one boat. Why in the world would you choose to buy a second one of the exact same kind? Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley Podcast. I'm sharing the story of how we very quickly fell in love with and purchased a second Bristol Channel Cutter. Today's episode of the Boat Galley Podcast is sponsored by Magma Products, makers of the best grills and cookware for your boat. Cook for a crowd with ease on the Newport Classic Grill, or whip up a gourmet meal using cookware that nests to take up less space. Visit magmaproducts.com to learn more. That's MAGMAPRODUCTS. As an extra bonus for Boat Galley Podcast listeners, use coupon code BG20 for 20% off through October 31st, 2021. Limit one use per customer. Go beyond the backyard. Make the world your kitchen using Magma products. Okay, owning one older boat in need of lots of love and restoration and attention, that's enough to make anybody feel like their world is full. So what in the world made us decide we were going to buy a second one? And no, it's not to be flipped. Part of it is the backstory. And I think backstories on boats are really incredible. For us, our love affair with Bristol Channel Cutters goes back 30 years, when our initial list of boats was 8 or 9 long that ran the gamut from an F-27 trimaran to a Bristol Channel Cutter, about as different boats as you could possibly imagine. We fell in love with our boat for all kinds of reasons, not the least of which is it was small, it was capable, it looked cool and different than almost any other boat out there, and we felt like at 28 feet, we could take care of her. One of the things we'd always not lamented, but we realized that when we bought Calypso in 1992, we could not have afforded a new boat. We couldn't have afforded a yard finished Bristol Channel Cutter. These boats are a rare breed. There have only been 126 of them made total, but the ones finished by the Sam Morse yard, the original yard in California, they've got a workmanship that's totally legendary. There's a man called Frank Mattei who wrote a book called The World's Best Sailboats, which does have the Bristol Channel Cutter in it. But he also wrote a book called Best Boats to Build or Buy, and he chose a photo of a Bristol Channel Cutter in the South Pacific as his cover shot for that particular book. Now, not everybody's going to agree with Frank Mattei, nor are they going to agree with our particular reasons for loving this boat, but we do. They're small, sure, especially compared to modern boats that a lot of people gravitate towards, but they are exquisitely designed to take 2 people anywhere in the world. Calypso was built when the yard was only offering a hull and deck. They weren't finishing out the interiors when our boat was bought. Her finish is, at this point, a mix of stuff from Bill Clark Custom Yachts in San Diego, which is where the first owners took her to be finished off, the modifications that her second owner made, and a lot of our own ingenuity. And it's not terrible, at least not the parts that are finished, but it's definitely not the standard set by Sam Morse. Never in our wildest dreams did we think we could ever afford a Sam Morse finished boat. They even now command a premium. There's a 1986 boat that's for sale on Yacht World for $150,000. And as much as we love these boats, if we were going to spend $150,000 on a boat, it would be a little bit larger than 28 feet. And there is a money reason that we're choosing to go on the boat that we're going on. A couple of weeks ago, another local Bristol Channel Cutter owner, someone who actually we're working with on a bow roller for our boats, she called us to let us know about a BCC that was in pretty rough shape that was coming on the market soon. Donna let us know. She said, "It's Sadie, and I can find some information on the internet. It's a 1995 boat, and the broker wants me to check it out because I know Bristol Channel Cutters, but he thinks it can't be worth more than, I don't know, like $20,000. Well, $20,000 for a Bristol Channel Cutter, even one in terrible shape, it's definitely worth more than that. And so we, too, hopped onto the internet to investigate BCC Sadie. And the listing from a pretty recent sale was kind of amazing. The photos we saw made us scratch our heads, and we said, well, how could this boat have gone to pieces so fast? The boat that was listed on this listing has 6'6" headroom. And Jeremy, who's 6'2", he can stand up straight only in the hatch openings on Calypso. One of the things that was different about a yard finished boat versus the boat that we have, our floorboards are a little bit higher, making the headroom in the boats a little bit less. So we dropped by the brokerage on July 3rd, Yazoo Yachting, and asked if we could go see the boat. Jonathan showed us the photos that he had taken, warning us of the condition of the exterior woodwork, the mast, the bottom, and the photos made us realize that the listing that we'd seen was not the same boat. And that sent us down another whole rabbit hole trying to figure out what this boat was. Is there another Sadie? Who names a Bristol Channel Cutter where there are only 126 of them in the whole world? Who names one the same as another one anyway? And why can't we find any information at all other than this listing, which isn't really of this boat, on this boat? Jeremy started the Yahoo groups way back in the early days of the internet in the mid-90s when we got back from our first cruise. And a lot of the owners are on that particular forum still. So when we went to go look at it, one of the things we checked out was the name on the transom, which isn't Sadie after all, it's Sati. We had a lovely time speaking with the owners, Paul and Maureen. And Sati, as near as we can tell from talking to them, was a dream personified. They had retired as physicians and moved to Deltaville, and they were going to take the boat and go cruising to the Caribbean. They had planned a Caribbean cruise. They actually provisioned her up. They'd hired a captain to go with them. And then a hurricane blew through and put an end to that particular trip. And as they were getting older and they were worried about health and weather and really wondering if they knew enough about sailing, Sati just sat on the dock down a steep hill from their home. They could see her mast out the windows, and it reminded them daily of what Paul considers one of his biggest failures. Well, of course we bought her. No, we didn't even pay that $20,000 that had initially been thrown out as a number. We've moved her to the yard where Calypso was until very recently. We scraped her bottom of oysters, yes, oysters, and barnacles. We've emptied her out. One of the saddest things that we found when we went through the shed with Paul was a full custom canvas cover that had never been put on the boat. And a lot of the damage that's done that we will now remedy would have been avoided. Oh well. You fall in love with boats for lots of different reasons. Some of them are the stories that you make up in your head. Some of them are the stories that come with the boat. Some are the stories that you learn if you take the time to talk to the person who has it. One of the things the broker told us when we were talking to him was that when Maureen came in to talk to him about listing the boat, she asked him to find someone to love the boat. And that's exactly what we want to do. We'll spend yet more time fixing up a Bristol Channel Cutter. This one, we need to work on the exterior wood. There's a mast problem that we need to deal with. And there are a few minor things that need to be tweaked. Although we were laughing and saying that actually in some ways, the boat is almost more ready for cruising than Calypso, despite the amount of time that we've spent on our wonderful, beloved Calypso. Our plan with this new one is to have her based on the east coast of the U.S., meaning we'll take Calypso far places, and when we come back to the States to visit family, we'll have a boat to play around with and cruise. Some of the things that we're putting on Calypso, like a water maker or upgrading the propane to 20-pound tanks, they're not critical at all when we're going to be playing around in places a little more close to home. This boat has a monitor wind vane, and though we sold the one off of Calypso's transom, we don't need to put on a brand new something else because this is a newer monitor. We are still planning to go on a cruise on Calypso, leaving as soon as our Get Her Seaworthy projects are done. In fact, we should be underway, hopefully, if the weather holds out, by the time this podcast goes live. And one of the things that's bizarre is that the new boat, it's got some things on it that we needed for Calypso, like a Dodger, because ours crumbled to bits about a year ago, and Jeremy was planning on building something very quick, down and dirty, to get us through that Maine trip this summer. So we're borrowing the Dodger from the new boat, and all of a sudden, in a day, we have a Dodger. We also now have a table down below, which we had on Calypso, but with the refit, the old table didn't fit. So we've borrowed the new one and put it on the boat. Now we got a table. Pretty awesome. When we get back from Maine in the fall, we'll find a yard where we can have both boats hauled out next to each other and work away. We kind of joke that we'll probably go from one to the other, might get excited about one, go check one out. We already have a lot of times that we have to go look at another Bristol Channel cutter and measure things, yard finished boats, to see what we want to do on Calypso. Now we get to do it on our own boat. There is an awful lot of planned flexibility in our future, though, as you might imagine, because working on one boat, working on two boats. Are we crazy taking on a boat that needs some significant work when we already have a boat which still needs a lot of love? Yeah, probably. But we now have a yard finished BCC in the family. And though it doesn't have 6'6" headroom, it does have enough headroom that Jeremy can stand up in it. And when I look at these two boats, either one of them, side by side, and think that we have the privilege and joy to be able to fix them up and love them and caretake them, we couldn't be happier. So, which one are we going to share an anchorage with you when we get out cruising, and you do too? Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We love hearing from our listeners. We love it when you subscribe. We love it when you share us with your friends. Have the most spectacular week.